Hey guys, I'm Ori Day, and in this video we're going to take a look at some unused assets that can be found in the Resident Evil 2 demo. Now I know this has already been done before to a certain extent by other people, but I'm going to do it again anyway because I think it's just that cool. So with all that said, let's get right into it. Number 1. Leon's Headshot. So the first thing we're going to start off with is the most easily accessible unused asset, and that would be Leon's face. Looking at his headshot in the inventory screen of the demo, it reminds me of the controversy with Steve Burnside's hairstyle in Code Veronica, where he was said to have a striking resemblance to Leonardo DiCaprio, which prompted Capcom to change his hair in Code Veronica X in hopes of avoiding a lawsuit. Well, if this version of Steve simply resembled Leonardo DiCaprio, then this version of Leon is Leonardo DiCaprio in the flesh, or pixels rather, which is probably why they ended up changing it. It also doesn't help that his headshot looks nothing like his in-game appearance. Number 2. Weapons. The final version of Resident Evil 2 has a decent selection of weapons to begin with, but there's a good amount of cut content which we can find hidden in the demo files. Probably the most interesting one is the Calico 950, which is a gun that apparently also exists in real life, just like most of the other weapons in the game. It has a top-mounted helical magazine that takes 9mm parabellum rounds and has a capacity of 50 to 100 bullets. Why they ended up dropping it in the final version of the game is anyone's guess. There are also several forms of ammo that didn't make it to the final version of the game, starting with chemicals A and B. While we know that the concept of creating ammo from gunpowders was introduced in Resident Evil 3, apparently Capcom wanted to implement it earlier but ended up scrapping it eventually for some reason. These chemicals could be used to create flame rounds and acid rounds for the grenade launcher by simply combining the chemicals with regular grenade rounds. In addition to the chemicals, there are also certain ammo types that didn't make it to the final version of the game, namely fuel for the flamethrower, batteries for the spark shot, and magazines for the submachine gun. And lastly, different textures. Apparently, the rocket launcher was initially meant to resemble the one that appeared in Resident Evil 1, or maybe they just meant for it to be a placeholder while they worked on the upgraded design. The upgraded Magnum had a shorter barrel than what we end up getting in the final version, and the textures for the handgun and shotgun ammo are also slightly different to what we get in the final version of the game. Number 3. Recovery items. Remember the chemicals A and B from the weapons segment? Interestingly enough, you could also combine them with each other to make a recovery chemical which would apparently heal the character's wounds. This probably ended up scrapped in favor of the signature first aid sprays. There is also a pink first aid spray that was apparently meant to be used as an antidote to poisons. This was probably dropped since blue herbs already existed, so they might not have seen the need for two different items that did the same thing. Number 4. Miscellaneous items. The Resident Evil series is well known for its extravagant and convoluted puzzles, so it's safe to assume that not all of them would make it past the developmental stage into the final version of the game. There is the wooden eagle stone, which I assume was meant to be used much like the wooden emblem in Resident Evil 1. This was probably scrapped in favor of newer puzzle concepts in order to avoid too much repetition across the games, though for some reason aligning floating boxes to form a bridge across water is one concept they didn't seem to mind reusing. There are also these items which I think was later on changed to become the chest plugs. I personally think this initial concept was more realistic, but they did manage to explain the existence of the eccentric chest plugs well enough in the game files. Apart from puzzles, the Resident Evil series is also well known for its many locked doors requiring the player to run around in search of conveniently scattered keys. The card-themed keys that we know and love in the final version of Resident Evil 2 apparently started out as a much more different concept. There were the PSLD keys, which stood for Private, Strict, and Limited respectively. I couldn't find what the D key was an abbreviation for. There is also a green and yellow key card. In addition to this, there is a locker key which could be used to choose between the machine gun and the side packs in the weapon storage room. And this plain looking key which was apparently meant to be used in place of the MO disc to get to the platform elevator. And finally, there is this watch which I'm not sure what it was meant to be used for, but I think it might have belonged to Ada since she does seem to be wearing a similar looking watch in the game. She might have dropped it for Leon to pick up or something. So that's all I have for this video. If you guys like stuff like this, I could try to find more hidden stuff in the other classic Resident Evil games. But for now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I'll hopefully see you in the next one.